Veniamo da te, chiamati per nome, che festa, Signore, tu cammini con noi, ci parli di te, per noi spezzi il pane, ti riconosciamo, il cuore arde, sei il tuo popolo, siamo qui, siamo come terra ed argilla, e la tua parola ci plasmerà, braccia pronta per la scintilla, e il tuo spirito soffierà, ci infiammerà. Veniamo da sé, chiamati per nome, che festa, Signore, tu cammini con noi, ci parli di sé, per noi spezzi il pane, ti riconosciamo, il cuore arde, sei tu, e noi tuo popolo, siamo qui. Siamo come semi nel solco, come vigna che il suo frutto darà, grano del Signore risorto, la tua messe che fiorirà d'eternità. Veniamo da sé, chiamati per nome, che festa, Signore, tu cammini con noi, ci parli di sé, per noi spezzi il pane, ti riconosciamo, il cuore arde, sei tu, e noi tuo popolo, siamo qui, e noi tuo popolo, siamo qui. Sì.
Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio e buonasera. Eh sì, perché c'è chi è già finito
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night,
pranzo, chi si prepara
good evening. And so there are people who have just had breakfast and others having supper. I'm an oblate of Mary Immaculate, Father Salvo.
Sono Claudia
My name is
sono
Claudia.
nell'est dell'Italia.
I live in
Sono sposata
Italy.
con Bepi, che è qui presente in
I'm
sala.
married to
E
Barry, who's here in the hall,
siamo nonni di 3 nipoti.
and I have 3 grandchildren. There is some technical information for you. The control room will send us give us a little bit of information that we need, especially to keep us all calm. So first of all, please turn your microphones off. Then, of course, there are helping us from the control room. So in order to get your translation, which you might already have, you go to the icon of interpretation on the right-hand side at the foot of your screen, and then choose a language you'd like to listen to. Then there is a chat. The chat is available for questions or comments that you might have during the meeting. So for anyone on the Zoom, we ask you to rename yourselves and putting the language, to write on the side the language that is your language that you speak in, which is helpful for there are lots of us here from different vocations. Papa, there's about 40 people here, and Margaret Karam will be with us, and Jesus Moran, who is the co-president. They are with us. And then via Zoom, you can see for yourselves on the Zoom, there's 400 or so people or listening points, and others will be joining us. And there are, of course, in quite a number of places, not just individuals, but groups. So we are linked from over 50 countries. So what shall we say about these countries? There's people from Latin America and Central America, all the countries there, and the United States, Asia, Korea, India, Philippines, Vietnam, and the Middle East, the Holy Land, and Lebanon. In Africa, we're linked up with Angola, Burundi, Cameroon, Uganda, Kenya, and Senegal, and also Congo, and a number of countries in Europe. So now we'll hand over to Mariano and to Sister Tiziana, who will give us the essence of the meaning of this meeting.
Buongiorno. Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio a tutti, qui dall'Argentina, un piacere di essere insieme.
Hello to everybody. People of God, Crossroads of Diversity. This is the title of our meeting today, which sees so many of us from different vocations and nations together. We want to look for a moment at the journey we start off again with more impetus, many knots of a single net. This journey together began 40 years ago in Aula Neve in the Vatican with the Congress in which several of you participated, Priests Today, Religious Today. There, we were only religious and priests. Today, we're here, the whole people of God, a sign of a process that's underway, not only at the level of the work of Mary, but of the whole church. We're here because we feel the passion for the church. As Karel Lubeck used to say, we feel the desire to make it ever more beautiful by being at the forefront in its organizations, dioceses, parishes, priests, but also in the various charismatic communities scattered around the world, to revive them with the spirituality of unity that belongs to all of us. Yes, it's true. Unity, church and humanity have challenged us, the whole church. We're committed to building unity, and we're aware that this is our response to the expectations of society and the church. Many religious institutes are now living a relationship of intense communion with the laity, with associates, with co-workers. It's the charism that unites. The charism unites all of us. And we understood we can no longer present ourselves as individual persons, but as charismatic families, as parishes, as dioceses that live in unity for unity, as part of this body. Portions of the church and of humanity, many colors as there are charisms, ministries, countries of origin. And we have the task of giving life to communities in which the gospel permeates the most concrete dimensions of daily life. We've got a marvelous task to generate communities in the light of the charism of unity. and together with the other realities that are present in the places in which we operate. So to contribute to generating homes, communities, schools of communion, open to all humanity.
Che bello poter vivere.
Gosh. This. With us, Margaret and Jesus are here, the president and co-president of the Focolare. And they'll give us a greeting, but through them, there's the whole work of Mary that's walking with us, the project for the birth of the diocesan movement in other countries besides Italy, the commitment of priests, consecrated persons, religious and laity in the synodal path, which is so alive today in the Church, urging us to develop a spirit and culture of communion in all we do. We'll tell each other some of the steps that we've already taken, and we'll try to understand how to continue this journey of unity. We listen to testimonies of different vocations, from bishops, religious, lay people, consecrated people, priests. And so to begin, let's that started us on this journey. A brief summary of the 1982 Congress. Okay, the video. Have a good meeting.
We'll open this International Congress of Priests and Religious of the Focolare movement, which they have organized together.
In Mexico, la Colombia, Indonesia, Iraq e Israele.
7,000 priests and religious came to Rome for a huge event called Priests and Religious Today. They're united by the spirituality of unity of the Focolare movement.
Geweihter junger Mann. Eine solche Versammlung von Priestern enorm und weltweit zu sehen, bestätigte mir,
Build a wide family.
Folge immer wieder dafür eingesetzt, dass wir auch so leben. Und heute kümmere ich mich in der Diözese Augsburg um 600
who feel called to be first and foremost witnesses of the gospel and people of dialogue, religious who have found in the spirituality of the movement encouragement to better embody the charism of their founders.
Oggi lo Spirito Santo chiama con decisione
Today, the Holy Spirit is calling priests, religious and lay people to universal fraternity. And this is why the word dialogue is very relevant today. Priests today cannot fail to be people of dialogue.
Em 1982, eu ainda estava com os seminaristas. Lembro-me que aquele dia foi uma enorme festa. E na jornada era-nos apresentado ideal.
An occasion which, through testimonies from all over the world, showed the fruits of the encounter of the charism with the clergy, the Catholic Church and other churches, and the religious communities.
Já passaram anos sobre isto, mas cá dentro ainda tenho o mesmo desejo de viver em saída, de não me fixar no olhar para
In
mim
her
próprio.
talk, Chiara Lubick emphasized the two focal points of this experience: Jesus crucified and forsaken as the model of the priest and the religious, mutual love and unity as the lifestyle and purpose of their mission. On that day, John Paul II presided over the greatest concelebration since the institution of the Eucharist. As the L'Osservatore Romano headline stated, it was a moment of celebration and an opportunity to take stock of 3 decades of life, but also the starting point for new developments. I was here with many other religious. It was a prophetic event that saw journeying together people of the charisms, we religious, and many priests and lay people, and we want to contribute to the synodal pathway of our day.
Diamo spazio adesso ad un primo gruppo di esperienze
We're going to hear now a small group of experiences, and we're going to hear from Brazil, where there is a married focolarina and a seminarian.
Ha spinto ad un percorso che ha portato ad alcuni congressi pastorali.
La seconda che sentiremo è del nunzio apostolico in Ecuador.
The second is from Ecuador, from the nuncio there, and some priests of the Diocese of Quito, who are meeting out together with the Word of Life to share their experiences and fruits.
Me chamo Daisy, estou lá na casa. Olá.
We are
Hello.
preparing the experience of the congress.
Desde quando começamos a ouvir?
My name is Daisy. I'm a married focolarina and I belong to the parish movement. I'm Matthias, a Jen, and we're part of the team for the preparation of the Pastoral Congress in Brazil. And we want to share this rich experience that we've had. Since we began to feel that we had to live in synergy with the other parts of the movement, we in the parish movement felt it was important to walk with the other sectors who are also taking ahead the charism of unity in the church. This is how we came up with the idea of doing the formation of our members together with the branch of the priests Focolarini and the volunteers, with the men and women religious and in this way, we began to implement a new path, talking among ourselves and with our networks. And we came up with the idea of organizing a national pastoral congress. Two congresses were held in 2020, one in Mariápolis Gineta in the southeast of Brazil, the other in Mariápolis Gloria in the north of Brazil. An important stage of our experience in synergy with all the others was the growth of mutual knowledge among us, and the growth in all of us of the desire to be a family, people of God. Living this reality in the new setup of Brazil, the Pastoral Congress has been the ideal environment to keep alive the presence of Jesus among us. In 2021, we held the second National Pastoral Congress with the title Church, Trinitarian People, Bearer of Hope. It was a challenging congress held online, which served to rekindle hope in all our people. The issue of physical distance was overcome by the intense communion between the members of our networks and the experience of Trinitarian life. Although we were physically distant, Jesus in the midst united us and rekindled the flame of his love with a significant participation of people from all over Brazil. Certainly, if it had been in person, many would not have been able to be present. In January 2022, we held another pastoral congress called Synodality, the Churches Today in Our Hands. Motivated by Pope Francis's strong call for a synod church, this congress was mixed in person because we realized that many could not attend in person. Groups were formed to meet in various cities in Brazil to participate remotely in the congress. Another important thing in this congress was the interaction between online and in-person participants. It was a challenge for our organizing committee, but it was worth it because the togetherness between everyone was so intense that it even felt like everyone was in one room. In this process of listening, synodality, communion, our hearts are widening towards what we are called to, that all may be one. It's a testimony in our parishes to that phrase of the gospel, many but one body. With each mission that we undertake, we try to be an expression of Jesus in the midst. New avenues that have generated the desire parishes, with meetings on the word of life, in-depth studies, cultural and musical activities, always leading to a greater involvement of the members of the movement in the life of the church.
Ho cercato di condividere quello che cerco di vivere. Primo tema Dio amore, 12° Maria.
4 years ago, my name is Andres Carrascosa. 4 years ago, I was asked to preach the exercises, spiritual exercise to the clergy of Quito. I tried to share what I try to live. The first theme was God love. The 12th talk, Mary. We had moments of sharing. They were very beautiful. A group of about 40 of them asked me to continue to meet. We started a Word of Life group. I said I was only interested in whether it could help us live God's word. Since then, there are still 20 from the first group meeting after 4 years. Then, a few years ago, a second was born of a dozen or so. Every month, among the 20, on 2 different occasions, we meet together. There's a great change in the life of the priest, and there's been a great sense of brotherhood being rediscovered. It's a grace of God that I'm experiencing, with which I'm very happy, and I'm happy to share it with you. I want to share that through the Word of Life group, I had a deeper experience of this Word of God. It became more alive in me. I learned to understand the gospel better, to make it become truly my life. And this also happened with my brother priest and with a community with which I work. And there's been a greater growth, a spiritual growth in them and in me. I thank the people that God has put on our path, like Monsignor, like Bishop Andres Carrascosa Costa, the Apostolic Nuncio in Ecuador, because thanks to him, we've had a very good priestly journey, priestly development, a journey of fraternity, of brotherhood. And we feel that we're one family. We share our hopes and our joy, and we feel much more fulfilled in our ministry. And the community also feels renewed and has grown in faith and in the knowledge of this word of life. And everyone wants to continue to share this experience with other brothers and sisters. I've been in the Focolare for 3 years. It's been a beautiful experience and a process because it's allowed me to grow in spirituality as a priest. I knew that there would be a meeting of about 15 priests and that the nuncio would be there too. But when I arrived, I found, I believe, priests who were in need of healing. I would have said priests with weaknesses, fragilities, with pain, and with hearts that were broken. I too arrived like this, heartbroken in some ways, and I've tried to make the word of life my own. And at that time, the word of life was Mary heard the word of God and believed. And for me, it was difficult. It was difficult to believe that word. It's different when you prepare a homily for the church, but it's quite a different thing to live the word of. Even though the first time I took part in the Word of Life group, I said I wouldn't come back, even if I was mad. Now I think I really am mad. I'm crazy because on the second Tuesday of every month, I can't wait to get back to meet together with my brothers and sisters around the Word of Life.
Aunque la primera vez que participé de Palabra de Vida, dije que no volvería ni si estuviera loco. Y creo que ahora tengo mucho de loco porque espero volver a estar con...
Ecco, abbiamo qui Margaret e Jesus.
So here we have Margaret
and Jesus. I wanted
Per il cinese bisogna scegliere il lituano.
It's an explanation for Chinese.
E anche... Allora, appunto, Margaret Carram, presidente del Movimento dei Focolari.
Margaret is the president of the Focolare movement.
E Jesus Moran, presidente, confermato per un ulteriore mandato dalla stessa assemblea del 20.
And Jesus has been confirmed for another 6 years. And we'd like to ask them some questions now. We begin with Margaret.
Come vivere oggi quella profezia dell'evento del 30 aprile 82 in un mondo profondamente
How
cambiato?
can we live this event of 1982 today? You can't imagine how much this church reality is important to all of us. As Sister Tiziana said, we really have passion for the church. So a snippet of the video from 82. It was a prophecy. Just the fact in itself was a prophecy. Priests and religious of many charisms together, and not each one going their own way. They came from all over the world. They were from the most diverse cultures, experiences of the church. And among them, there were also ministers from various other churches, all attracted by a charism that was born from lay people and for which God had chosen a woman as instrument. We understand at once that this prophecy still has a lot to say, and it can still help us to go even further ahead. At this time, Pope Francis is inviting everyone to synodality, to a journey that has no boundaries and wants to everyone. Impression on me in this regard was the concise and courageous statement, and I'd say the innovative statement for that time of 82, when Chiara defined the priest as the person of dialogue. It was truly a prophecy born from the light of the charism, in consonance with the spirituality of communion and in agreement with the experience that was developing in the work of Mary with its various dialogues. A prophecy that's made its way and is continuing to mature so as to become an increasingly shared and practiced reality throughout the Church. Pope Francis's teaching is in this direction, an approach that's extraordinarily open to dialogue, first with other Christian traditions, and then projected to build bridges with the most diverse religious contexts of fraternity with all. The word dialogue resonates as an imperative, a path from which there can be no turning back. As Pope Francis said with decision recently and with clarity when he was in Kazakhstan, it's up to us then to live it and bear witness to it. We should carry this wide vision into all the structures of the churches, not just in our own Catholic Church, but into all the churches. The spirituality of unity, we know, offers us remarkable help. There are countless experiences born from the life of priests and religious, of gens, of the new generations, of men and women religious, with so many fruits. God knows the number of fruits through the lives of many religious. And another important thing is the development that the parish movement and diocesan movements have had in recent years, and not forgetting that so many members of our movement are involved in the different structures and organisms of the Church. And then the beautiful communion that's come about among the ecclesial movement since Pentecost 98, and the many steps and developments that have taken place in the ecumenical world. The testimonies we've just heard, we haven't heard all of them, but just the few we've heard already, they say so much. But where should we aim to succeed in this venture? God asks us to work rooted in God, in his mystery of love, which is manifested in a very special in the forsaken and risen Lord. Movement it's dedicated to our interior life and prayer can really strengthen us in this choice. In the 1982 conference, we only had a tiny bit, but Karen made a point that caught my attention. She focused on the two main cornerstones of our spirituality. Jesus crucified, who cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And unity. And then she explained with a powerful and illuminating summary who Jesus forsaken is. Kara says, who is Jesus crucified and forsaken, if not the one who opened the way to universal dialogue for all people? Is it not there where the culmination of his passion and death is expressed, in that total stripping away of everything external and within himself, that he becomes fully the and God? And she continues, that divine spiritual wound that was opened in his heart when even heaven was closed for him, is it not a wide open door through which the human person can finally be united with God and God with the human person? And this final synthesis, I think, says everything. That because humankind through Jesus crucified was able to reestablish dialogue with God, dialogue also came about among people. Jesus crucified is the bond of unity, also between human beings. And unity is the fruit of dialogue. It's dialogue that's consummated. It's beautiful, this expression. It's the fruit of dialogue. It's dialogue completely consummated. These words resonate with me with extraordinary relevance. It's the prophecy of the past, but it's something really pertinent. Are giving our lives for the world and the church today. You ask, is this prophecy still valid in a profoundly changed world? I want to affirm that this prophecy is more valid than ever. It seems to me we should train ourselves daily to look at the world and each person from God's eyes as children of one Father. This is something that for all of us is something we can all do. We know about it, but we've got to put it into practice. This reality opens our hearts to welcome those who are different, not to be afraid, but to have the courage to count on the positive in the other with a whole new commitment. In this profoundly changed world, in the face of the failures we witness, the decisive influence of rich and developed countries on others, the increase in environmental degradation, in the face of globalization and polarization, we should continue to believe that sincere dialogue, fraternity is undoubtedly an antidote to war. Peace must be prepared with a constant, often slow, decisive path, which hopes and believes even in the darkest nights of humanity. In this wounded world, profoundly changed, the culture of fraternity is a reality that's still to be conquered, and we all have a great contribution to make. And I want to leave you with a question that, don't you think that perhaps we need to start again from scratch, from the bottom, from our communities, from ourselves, so as to give space to God to be in communion with him, the source of love, with a capital L, and to weave of acting that are marked by choices for fraternity, for an unconditional dialogue, which will lead to achieving the unity invoked by Jesus. Maybe we can reflect on this.
Grazie Margaret. Jesus, allora Oggi si parla tanto di sinodalità.
Okay, now Jesus.
In quegli anni, negli
We
anni
talk a lot about synodality,
del
Jesus,
secolo scorso ormai, si parlava di spiritualità di
and
comunione.
in the last century, we could say there was much said about the spirituality of communion, as John Paul II later called it in Novembre Millennium at the time of the new millennium. In your opinion, what is the relationship between synodality and the spirituality of communion? As I think you can well understand, synodality and spirituality of communion are two realities that are profoundly connected. So the relationship is very close indeed. Refer back to the Second Vatican Council, where they find their source for modern times, because obviously they were there at the very beginning in the life of the Church, but they respond to two different moments in the history of the Church, in the more recent history of the Church. John Paul II gave the Church the document Novembre Millennium as a navigational chart for it in the third millennium. And in this vein, he issued an important challenge. We find it in number 43 of this document, and I quote, "To make the Church the home and school of communion, that is the great challenge, precisely, the challenge facing us in the millennium which is now beginning, if we wish to be faithful to God's plan and respond to the world's deepest yearnings." And then the Pope asked, but what does this mean in practice? Here too, our thoughts could run immediately to the action to be undertaken, right impulse to follow. Before making practical plans, we need to promote a spirituality of communion. Here's the concept. A spirituality of communion, making it the guiding principle of education wherever individuals and Christians are formed, wherever ministers of the altar, consecrated persons and pastoral workers are trained, wherever families and communities are being built up. A spirituality of communion indicates above all, and this is very important, the heart's contemplation of the mystery of the Trinity dwelling in us, and whose light we must also be able to see shining on the faces of brothers and sisters around us. So it's this contemplation of the heart of the Trinity and Trinitarian relationships. It's very significant to read now in 2020 what the Pope wrote further on in quote, "Much has also been done since the Second Vatican Council for the reform of the Roman Curia, the organization of synods, and the functioning of bishops' conferences. But there is certainly much more to be done in order to realize all the potential of these instruments of communion, which are especially appropriate today in view of the need to respond promptly and effectively to the issues which the Church must face in these rapidly changing times." So, a structural reform starting with the Curia. Then he went on, "Communion must be cultivated and extended day by day and at every level in the structures of each church's life. There, relations between bishops, priests, and deacons, between pastors and the entire people of God, between clergy and religious movements must all be clearly characterized by communion." This means that in some way, therefore, Pope John Paul II had already foreseen what we now experience as the synodal process. He had already suggested that it happened, that intuited that it should happen. There has been development over time, both in terms of the reform of the Curia and of other structures, and also the expansion of opportunities for sharing and fellowship in the pontificate of Pope Francis, the Pope who in a very special way has set about the process of reform in the Church, or better still, as Cardinal Parolin said recently to the German bishops, reformation in the Church, into synodality. After all, it was difficult to take the challenge that John Paul II had launched, a spirituality of communion, this challenge without a profound reformation. So there's such continuity in the life of the Spirit. The International Theological Commission's document on synodality in the life and mission of the Church starts as follows. In number 1, it is precisely this path of synodality which God expects of the Church of the third millennium. So it talks about the concept of the spirituality of communion, but of synodality instead. This is a programmatic commitment proposed by Pope Francis in the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the institution of the Synod of Bishops by Blessed Pope Paul VI. Synodality, in fact, he stressed, is a constitutive element of the Church of Pope Francis, so that what the Lord is asking of us is already in some sense present in the very word synod, journeying together. Of communion and synodality connected, I think that it could be very enriching because all these connections are incredibly varied. So I would say this: the spirituality of communion is, as Novembre says, the guiding principle of education, the heart's contemplation of the mystery of the Trinity of synodality. Trinitarian relationships in synodality. Synodality, reciprocally, is the structural aspect, in the most beautiful sense of that word, or rather the style, the lifestyle with which to live the spirituality of communion, the way to live it. Because you could live the spirituality, you can live the spirituality of communion in a non-synodal way. The spirituality of communion is experience. What we experience in the synodal journey, so to sum up in a phrase, what we experience in the synodal journey is Trinitarian communion, fellowship. The spirituality of communion is the spirituality of the synodal journey. So we need to keep these two things together. We are ultimately talking about two different moments, not in a chronological sense, but of a single reality, so much so that they can be interchangeable. In fact, an ecclesiology of communion and synodal ecclesiology are synonymous, could be synonymous. One refers, the ecclesiology of communion refers to mystery, and the other refers to the method. The two are necessary. The synodality without mystery, as Cardinal Greg, he's very concerned about this, and too, they're worried about this. Synodality is simply an organizational arrangement without life. On the other hand, the spirituality of communion without synodality is in danger of remaining spiritual voluntarism. You need both things. Thank you very much. So now we're going to ask both of you, what do you have most at heart in this time for the Church? And how do you think that the work of Mary can make its contribution?
What's closest to my heart, first and foremost, is to prove that we are people of dialogue. Dialogue between our ecclesial expressions, continuing this exchange, and the ongoing collaboration with all of us to enrich ourselves, specific talents and resources of each one, from the priests to the religious families, the laity, the parish and diocesan movements. We should also take into account our great internationality and the fact that we are from various churches. Another thing that I think is close to my heart is to contribute in every possible way to the synodal ecclesiology, promoted by Pope Francis. We should make it operative, promoting listening, welcoming, mutual love between people and between the various realities of the Church, so that the risen one, Jesus in the midst, can become ever more present. And this is the right time. I hope I'm not being presumptuous. I think it's the right time to incarnate the life of charism at the service of the ecclesial community. That Mary will help us in this. And finally, it's close to my heart that the charism be lived by us as protagonists, with all its most evangelical and revolutionary characteristics, lived first and then witnessed with concrete facts, not just words, witnessed also at times in silence, and then, when appropriate, we should not be afraid to proclaim it.
I think that Margaret has said everything. I would just emphasize these last 2 points where she's speaking about this losing ourselves in the Church to contribute effectively to the synodal journey from our experience and from what we are, because we are a people, a church people, and this is already a synodal experience. I think that what we done already, and we need to be proud of that, but we mustn't repeat it. For example, it's impossible to repeat what was done in 1982. It's been done. And it had its effect. It had influence in the Church, just as the Family Fest was the root of the family events of the Vatican, and the Gen Fest was the start of the World Youth Days. These have been done, and the Church has taken them up as their own. So what do we expect to do? I don't think the way forward is to repeat what we've done in the past, but to lose ourselves in the service to the Church, thinking that it's not time now for our own visibility. It's not time to this visibility that we had in the past, but another type of being visible in the Church, which I see is as presence, a visible presence, not so much in terms of numbers as a qualitative presence, bringing what is essential through the charism. A little bit what we were saying before, synodality. We can contribute through the charism, through a spirituality of communion and unity, so that synodality doesn't remain something purely organizational. It's not a power games, which there would be the danger that it might come about. So contribute in service to the Church, a decisive service to the Church, a new type of visibility, a new type of presence, which is more qualitative than quantitative.
Grazie Margaret, grazie Jesus.
Thank you, Margaret and Jesus. You really rich input. Spiritual, ecclesiological input. You've touched on many different subjects in a very concrete way, in our way of living at every level. So thank you very much indeed. Also, you were so concrete in what you said, the things, practical things we can put into practice. Now, we're sorry we can't stay now with you, this meeting, which is so rich, and we'd really like to listen to everything, but we've got another meeting now at 3 o'clock with moderators of 6 different ecclesial movements. For 8 years now, we've been going ahead with in the process of communion, of synodality, working together. And this meeting was already planned with all of them. They'll be linked up from France, from Brazil, what we want to do for the future. So same atmosphere as here, living communion, building the church also with all these movements.
Ascoltiamo adesso una canzone dalle Filippine.
Now we'll have a song from the Philippines.
I mean, will those people meant to be speaking in that room?
We know that you are here and greet us this every day, 'cause you have always been the beginning of time. The looks of everyone, the smiles around, I just to say that we have always longed for you since the beginning of time. 'Cause you are here, Jesus, you are with us, in our midst to guide our every act. And now we ask that you remain forever in our midst, even if we're far apart. You are here, Jesus, you are with us, in our guide our every act. You remain forever in our midst, even if we're far apart.
Ascoltiamo allora adesso ancora qualche esperienza e ascoltiamo Sor Maria Inés Vieira Ribeiro di Aparecida nel Brasile. È già presidente della Conferenza dei Religiosi del Brasile, consultrice del Dicastero per la vita consacrata e le società di vita apostolica della Santa Sede. Ci racconta come ha cercato di contribuire alla crescita della comunità tra le consacrate e consacrati nelle comunità e con
And
i
now we learn how life among the different consecrated is going ahead.
It's so nice to see you, to speak to you all. Thank you. So greetings to all of you who are connected up with this wonderful meeting. Since I came in contact with the work of Mary, with the Focolare in a more direct way, I was struck by the way in which the members seek and truly try to live in unity. I realized that I've got so much to learn. I'm aware of my weaknesses and of how much I still have to work to live the charism better. I belong to a young congregation, one that was recently founded, and I was in fact the first sister to be elected to lead the congregation after our foundress. And this happened when she was still with us. It wasn't an easy time for us all, but words I heard from gave me the key and the assurance of my mission. She said, love bends so as not to break. I've tried so hard as I live my consecrated life as a messenger of divine love to be in fellowship and unity and to show respect for every person, for every sister and every brother. For the past 9 years, I've been at the service of consecrated life as president of the Conference of Religious in Brazil. there's one conference, one grouping for both religious men and women. And there, I want there to be only one thing. I only want one thing to happen to contribute to the growth of fellowship and communion among us as consecrated persons and in our communities and with the people we serve. The times we're living through are very difficult challenges. We live in an age where values are becoming in community life, and there is so much less tolerance and respect around. At the conference of religious, I've always tried to be present in all the realities of the church, to be in unity, in communion with everybody. How beautiful it is to try to journey with the church, forming, in fact, a people at the service of the kingdom of God, fostering life and going wherever there is most suffering. I have had some very enriching experience with these various groups and structures in the church. Since 1991, every 3 years, the church in Brazil has held assemblies of the associations of the people of God, which bring together conferences and councils, bishops, consecrated people, the laity, deacons and priests. However, due to some interest and also changes that took place in the bishop's meeting stopped, and they only started again in 2018 with the 9th assembly. And this year we held the 10th assembly from the 14th to the 16th of October. I lived some very deep moments with all the various groups that took part, and I was able to collaborate with the most varied activities. There's such variety and richness. I was able to contribute to the preparation of both of these last 2 assemblies. How beautiful it is to journey on as a synodal church, to journey on together for the growth of the kingdom, the times of dialogue, the sharing of ideas and mutual help with the Bishops' Conference in Brazil have been very rewarding, especially the respect that people have shown one another, the work that we've done together, the dialogue, and also the fun times that we had together. Every moment, I renewed within myself the desire to contribute to having Jesus in our midst always. During this time of the assemblies, I've lived in during all this time of work for the Conference of Religious, I lived in an intercongregational community, as my congregation doesn't have a community in Brasilia. It was an experience of growth in the diversity of charisms, culture and age. In the years 2020 and 2021, there were 8 sisters in that place from 8 different congregations, and the experience of harmony, the distribution of work, the times of prayer and community and sharing were very enriching. It made us grow, they made us grow so much, especially in the situation of isolation that we were experiencing at the time of the pandemic. My mission at the Conference of Religious, and now I will go to be part of a community that will dedicate itself to retreats, to formation and counseling for those in consecrated life in a different part of Brazil. I'm grateful to God and to the Mother of Unity for the rich opportunities I've had to live the charism of the work of Mary as a messenger of divine love at the service of the Church and of consecrated life. Thank you to all of you.
Grazie a te, Maria Ines. Ecco, adesso la seconda esperienza.
Now, the next experience will show us the process that's taken place in Italy within the Focolare movement by lay people, priests, religious, all together of different ages. How to answer the call of the Pope to live in a synodal way. Don Emilio, who's a priest from the Diocese of Fermo, who's present here, and Antonio and Maria, who's linked with us. And a key moment for the Focolare movement was a meeting that was held in Florence in November 2015. Several people from the movement were in that very significant ecclesial meeting, and they listened to a question that was asked by the person who at that time was Monsignor Nunzio Galantino, who was the General Secretary of the Italian Bishops' Conference. He said, "What contribution do you make to the life of the Church?" And this question, addressed to some of us, made us ask ourselves more questions. What contribution are we making to the Church in Italy? So, if a bishop asked us, what could we offer? Can we do something so that those who perform a service in the Church don't feel alone, but feel supported and have the awareness of working fully for the movement? We felt called to immediately start a process that would gradually involve people who for years have been involved in the structures of the local church or in bodies promoted by the Bishops' Conference. We started with the deacons and Focolare priests, and then we involved the other vocations and the many different expressions of the world of the Focolare. It was a process inspired by the indications of Pope Francis's exhortation Evangelii Gaudium, and in with the Evangelii Gaudium Center, which in Sofia University. This pathway continued with 4 meetings, 2 in 2016 and 2 in 2017. What were the characteristics of these meetings? We could say a deep dialogue that has grown over time between priests, deacons, and lay people. Second one, a working together as opera una, as one united movement, concentrating the energies we have in certain activities shared by everyone from the outset. Third, an appreciation of those who've already been working in the Church for many years. At the second meeting, we invited Monsignor Nunzio Galantino. He was Secretary of the Italian Bishops' Conference, so as view on what we were doing. He invited us to bring out our specific gift, the life that flows from the Word of God and the communicating of experiences. And amongst many things, he said, try and reread at least a few pages of Chiara Ludwig and of Foco, even among the first pages, where they speak of unity, and then read a few pages today on synodality, and you'll see they are the same thing. At the fourth meeting, Jesus Moran in 2017, he encouraged us to work with other ecclesial realities and to bring our specific instruments, the parish and the diocesan movements, because they work at that level. From 2018, things came out. There was a greeting and Jesus, and they suggested that a greater awareness that we need a new irradiation of the gospel at the service of our diocese, sharing more of the struggles and uncertainties, as well as the good practices, and coordinate ourselves better to help people with more difficulty. In July 2018, there was the launch of the course for pastoral workers with the following title: Local Church, Communion and Mission, Pastoral Paths in the light of Evangelii Gaudium. It was a real specific school promoted by the Focolare movement in Italy and from the center of Evangelium Gaudium of Sofia, a residential experience for about 70 pastoral workers from all over Italy. The aims of this school: to deepen of communion between the various groups of the for theoretical and practical tools drawn from Evangelii Gaudium to those involved in the structures of the church. Prepare qualified and competent people who are at the service of parishes and dioceses and know how to value the specific contribution of the charism of unity. The course method was characterized by certain attitudes. And then it's hard to stop because of the pandemic, but we wanted to create an environment in which we can listen to the Spirit together. Live a sincere passion for the church, which is expressed in mutual love and in a synodal style of life, and an environment that promotes dialogue and welcome. When maybe we could have different continuing with the various stages, in 2019, there was a meeting for young seminarians and priests, a meeting for the Italian bishops in Lopiano, and in the summer, in 2019, we repeated the pastoral course. In 2021, we had a conference at the Mariapoli Center in Cardine with an important theme by Piero Coda on synodality and discernment. Maybe many of you have seen this. It's on our YouTube channel. One tool we use a lot and which supports us is the magazine Ecclesia. And here you can see it. And also you can see the different activities we're doing on the Italian site under the heading in Italy. Going ahead for a few years, maybe we needed something more structured. We needed a permanent commission that would be rooted in the zone council and would represent the different realities within the zone, both not just national, but also locally. And so to move from national to local, we've asked Maria Curatolo, who's part of this commission. She's linked on Zoom today, and she works nationally and locally in Sicily, where she lives. Maria. Among the fruits of the ecclesial journey and the synodal path, it seems to us that certain dynamics of the communities of the movement at the service of the church that's looking outwards can be highlighted. In different places, the awareness of being followers of a charism rooted in the church and for all humanity has set various forms of creativity in motion. There have been opportunities to meet, to grasp the key aspects of our passion for the church. And the services carried out with International Caritas and other groups, collaborating with national, regional, and diocesan family, youth, and social groups. We've been able to grasp the power of placing ourselves within pastoral bodies. And also Ecclesia has published some of our articles. It's given a new drive to what we were doing. We've also involved other churches and people of different convictions. Moments have been born that we've seen that led us those most in need, but together difficult situations in our own environments. In our mutual respect for one another. Several initiatives have been born for different emergencies. We've collaborated, particularly in working for peace. Lino, my husband, and I, for many years, we've worked in the leadership of the diocesan officers for ecumenism and interreligious dialogue, and then in the family pastoral office. This made us realize how important it is to be an expression of a body and that supports those involved in these ecclesial realities. Now that we're at the service of the first dialogue for Italy and Albania, it's even more evident how important it is to network with those who are engaged in the life of the diocese, included in the councils of lay associates. We felt it was really urgent for all those who in the front line in the pastoral work and involved in the focolari to realize that there's a closeness and we can give mutual support so no one feels alone and they don't express only themselves, but instead a united body. So through working to the first dialogue, we've been drawing a plan of all the people in the work of Mary who are involved in many different ways. And we've begun to have meetings online and to share the life that we're doing so that together with the whole church, we can really be an expression of the church in communion and in society.
Thank you very much. Would you like to stay a bit longer? The third experience, it could be that for all of us, this journey towards holiness represents a challenge in our life. And it's also a challenge for the young people of the movement Charisms for Unity who wanted to go forward with many other consecrated people from different charisms to help one another in this challenge. So we'll see their experience in a video. We are young, religious and consecrated women who, having got to know the spirit of Chiara Lubick, wanted to keep our charisms in touch with one another and thus be available to God to promote unity in the church and in the world. We wanted to maintain this kindle this spirit. We want to keep the spirit alive amongst us all the time by using all kinds of means of communication. In pandemic made it impossible for us to meet in person, but we weren't stopped. We decided to keep going with our internet online meetings, and that's how we launched the experience of saints together on earth as it is in heaven. During these meetings, we invite young consecrated women and religious men to help us become holy together. We share experiences of how we live the gospel and how we built up a sense of communion and fellowship among ourselves and with others. So we've tried to live our consecration with faithfulness and joy. These meetings they take a lot of work, a couple of months' work in order to prepare them. There's a lot of effort involved. We share our talents. We listen to one another. We listen to the people who think differently from us. And we do something for somebody else when there isn't much, when they're not able to do the work that's done. So it's a workshop of unity and of mutual love amongst us. This mutual love gives life to the presence of the risen Lord amongst us and allows the Holy Spirit to inspire us and make us more creative. We listen to some witnesses' testimonies at our meetings, for example, about people who've concluded their journey towards holiness, or other people who can inspire us. So, for example, we invited Cardinal João Braz de Vries, who's prefect of the Dicastery for Consecrated Life, and we also invited Luigino Bruni, who spoke to us about the economy of Francesco. We invited musical groups who proclaim the gospel with their songs. To engage more vitally with the synodal pathway, we also invited Cardinal Grech and other guests. We always dedicate 30 or 40 minutes to sharing in groups because we want to put into practice immediately the experience of fellowship that we put forward. Much feedback from the people who've taken part in these meetings on holiness together. So some people wrote, "Thank you for the unity that you've built up in these events. Rediscovered my desire to live mutual love. You've rekindled hope in my heart. We can't become saints on our own. The church's communion is already a reality. God, the holiness together will bring many people to God." Bye.
Great creativity. Now, a network of relationships needs means, instruments that help it to communicate, to become known. These study centers allowed us to have this study to continue. Instruments are going ahead. We're talking about the Audi that they'll present to us now from Samero, the Proclarina, and the magazine Ecclesia, that Hubertus Blaumeise is the editor of this. So we'll begin with Samero. What is this Center Evangelium Gaudium?
And what do we do above all? The Evangelii Gaudium Center is a workshop of formation, study and research established within the Sophia University Institute. It derives its name from the apostolic exhortation Evangelii Gaudium that Pope Francis presented, and in which Pope Francis presented his pastoral program. As has been said, it was established after the Florence Conference and is run by the Sophia University Institute in collaboration with the various Focolare centers that are more closely linked to the structures of the life of the Church. Its purpose is to contribute to the mission of making humanity a single family. In recent years, we have run training courses for pastoral workers, for seminary trainers on leadership, on various topics related to the abuse of authority and many other events. These courses are open to everyone, and they are sustained by the Sophia University's academic expertise in the light of the spirituality of unity. For now, the courses are still restricted, with it's only 6 years that we've been going. But they are destined to be open to dioceses, to other movements, not only in Italy, but also on other continents. The upcoming program will be a formation course on synodality, an annual course for 98 hours composed of 4 self-contained modules. Will start in January, and you'll find all the information on the Evangelii Gaudium Center website.
Thank you. I imagine there'll also be information on time, enrollment costs, etc.
You asked? Yes, as a timetable, we have tried to be open to different time zones. We will run the course from 6 to 9 p.m. Rome time, when we'll have a special session for Asia. There'll be translation into English, Spanish, and Portuguese. It's intended for anybody who works within the church, priest, religious laity, because synodality is a way of being church today. And we'd like it to be a valid contribution to the reform of the church in a synodal style. So we'll start in January, as I said.
Thank you, and best wishes for all these activities. I think several of us will think about attending. Now, the magazine Ecclesia, a magazine established 4 years ago in its Italian version, but with an international outlook. It currently has 9 editions in various languages. Hubertus, what is Ecclesia? Project.
First of all, we need to look at the context. We live in the midst of a changing times. You're looking at the church there, Notre Dame burning, and we, the people of God, and the people of God is like a big building site, so to speak, a workplace. Pope Francis is urging us to walk along new paths, to walk together more and more, priests and laity, also with other churches, to build bridges with other religions, and to discover the presence of God everywhere in today's world, perhaps even where you least expect it. The charism community has much to contribute to all this quest. But for this, we need to be helped and trained and updated. Ecclesia will establish for that purpose. We thought, thinking about this, it's a little bit like a toolbox where everyone can dip in and find some resources that are accessible to everyone. For a meeting among charisms and for the exchange of good practice and good practical activities.
You mean everyone can find something for themselves in Ecclesia, but also we can all contribute to it.
Yes, in fact, that's it. So it's above all the topics related to the synodal path, you'll find there this toolbox. How can we meet in God? That's the foundation of everything. How can we live as a generative church? That's the most recent issues. How can we deal also in recent issues with how do we deal with the inevitable tensions? And there's also a new section of the magazine that publishes brief experiences on synodality.
You spoke of a platform for encounter and exchange. How can people contribute to it?
All of us can be a little bit
Tanta vita in giro nascosta, e anche
You can point us towards topics that you feel are important that we should explore and experiences. So we really do invite you to tell us about subjects and experiences that you'd like us to cover. And here you can see the address of our editorial board, Ecclesia at Cittànuova.it. And so then you could maybe make Ecclesia better known. We are surrounded by many potential fellow travelers who share so much with us. We can share perhaps one or other article with them, or even the whole magazine. And at the right time, perhaps we could even offer them a subscription, offer them that they take one out or pay for it.
But there's the problem of language.
Yes, yes, indeed, because we wanted Ecclesia to be an international network. So therefore, apart from the Italian version, there is an English which has free access. www.ecclesiaonline.org. And then there are also Spanish, Brazilian, Slovenian, and Slovak editions. They don't all have the name Ecclesia. There's also Das Prisma in German language, and Unity and Charisms in French and in Polish.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Beto Semero.
So now we're going to hear from Father Sergio Pellegrini, who is from Barletta, together with a young couple who are going to tell us their experience of the community of Corato in Puglia in the south.
Hello, everybody. We'll tell you our experience in Corato in Puglia in the south of Italy. When I arrived in the parish 20 years ago, my desire was first of all to create a family relationship with the parishioners. And I built it by dedicating much of my time to personal listening and looking after relationships. I realized that while being the parish priest, I had to share the responsibility of community life with all those who are willing to build a climate of communion among all. A group was immediately created with whom we shared monthly experiences of the Word of life. Sharing the fruits of the Word generated a living and attractive cell of the church among us all. During my teenage years, I distanced myself from the church because I didn't see the values of the gospel. I was asked to be a confirmation sponsor. I went to the parish for some preparation, and I was immediately attracted by the family atmosphere I found and the welcome I received. Later, a simple greeting from someone in the street, a smile, the time and the listening that was given to me without measuring led me to discover the secret of that way of life. At that time, I was engaged to Loredana, and I used to go to another parish. But wanting to follow her, I found myself in this new reality in which I was struck by the concreteness with which the gospel was lived in daily life. How to forgive someone, how to take the first step, how to be the first to love, how to put the other person at the center of attention. Bonds were thus created between us that went beyond mere friendship because we were united by the same experience of God. Expression where two or three are gathered in my name, there I'm in their midst, became true for us. And the whole parish community has benefited from this presence of Jesus in our midst. In fact, living mutual love has also become a lifestyle for other parishioners belonging to different groups, associations, and movements. When we got married, the parish community was supportive during a difficult time, helping us to embrace the pain of losing our son, Emmanuel. We felt a big family around us that supported us spiritually and materially. This made us stop putting ourselves at the service of the community, giving ourselves as a family wherever we were needed. We started with the young, then engaged couples, the families, then teaching catechism. A real passion for the church was gradually growing in us. Now, for 5 years, we've been who are now university students. We meet on Sunday evenings and discuss issues that more closely concern them. A climate of mutual trust has been established that's allowed us to start again, even when there have been misunderstandings in the group. Now, it's nice to see that so many of them have, in their turn, become educators of the younger ones. We felt that what we lived from the beginning of our experience, we could not keep it just for ourselves, but we could give it so that others could also experience the life of the gospel lived. And even now that Father Sergio is no longer our parish priest, we feel even more the desire to cherish this experience of mutual love, to make the risen Jesus visible among us in the parish. Goodbye, everyone. So now, a special moment where we'll all be involved. We'll open a space now for about half an hour to be able to share our experiences, our reflections and ideas, and what the things that we've heard today has brought about in us. So we can do it staying where we are, but we can divide into virtual rooms. The bigger groups together can meet where they are, but the others are technicians to whom we want to say a big thank you for what they're doing. They'll organize us all in different rooms according to whatever language we speak. And at the end of the time, the plenary session, if you can choose one person in your group who can be the moderator, who can help to guide things, but there isn't a lot of time. so maybe not everyone will have time to speak, but at least so that as many people as possible can speak, we'd ask everyone to speak very briefly. And it could be that maybe you end up in a group that doesn't speak your language, because there are many of us and not everybody signed which language they wanted. In that case, you need to come out of the room if they don't speak your language and go and choose another group where your language is signed. We thought of another thing we could use to be able to communicate what comes out of your experiences or even questions. So in the chat, you'll find the link for be linked with the Padlet that we've prepared. And now you can open the Padlet before you go into your group. So have a good meeting and we'll come together soon. Have a good meeting. Good sharing.
Meeting. I've seen that many of you wrote on the Padlet, so maybe we could actually work that we wanted to have by reading some of the things that were actually written on the Padlet. Obviously, there are a lot of thank yous being said in all the languages and all types of thank yous. So I'll just read one or two. Great things are happening in the Church of God and among people. The experiences were very moving. We're already on the journey and we can go ahead with strength and courage. Would you like to read some? I'm happy to feel that we are walking, going forward with the church on its synodal path. Really nice what Margaret was saying, to start from the grassroots. And then in Portuguese, someone has said this is very important to continue our journey. My heart is beating fast. You make room for the will of God so that the Holy Spirit can enter in and we can all become one. Here there's many more. Then there have been a lot of ideas for this journey ahead. So we're going towards, maybe even going towards our conclusions.
So let's go ahead in our own communities and share our experiences. That's right, it would be good to have a good platform where we can do this. Continuity of this meeting would be good. In 2022, we could organize something according to the things Margaret and Jesus said. But all of these, you can read them yourself on the Padlet. And you can pick up on any of these ideas. And every good strengthen working together, and this will make the world more united. Our communion needs to be concrete together to share initiatives and the good practices of each one said. Some suggested to have this kind of meeting again together. And someone repeated Margaret's words, rooted in God, abandoned to Jesus, forsaken, will find the light to go ahead. Multiply this experience locally and have the chance of sharing it with as many people as possible. It would be interesting to deepen together the key points of Evangelium and the extracts during the meeting, and also to have a summary of the Congress that took place in Florence. A question in English. To take up the challenge of visibility and to be credible in front of everyone. These are a few of the things that have come through. And let's remember that the real teacher is the one who sets the disciples on fire, and then we'll have the good answers. 3 ideas that Margaret gave us, very concrete. To be people of dialogue, first of all, with one another, with the different realities of the church, about synodality, wherever we are, first, and then give witness. I think also in the chat of the Zoom, there have been lots of comments that have been, wait a minute, but you can see them. If you open the chat, you'll see all the things that people have written, all the comments that are there. I don't say a conclusion, but some points that have been emphasized. Let's see if we can get them here. Our final word, we can only say gratitude. Gratitude to all of you who participated in this meeting, especially Margaret and Jesus. They've shown us the way ahead to continue to follow, and also for the future. Because this moment isn't just a nice moment we have together, a beginning or a continuing of the journey we want to keep on together. At some point, each of us has been attracted, has been drawn. Let's hope that we continue to be attracted by the immense love of God. It's almost like a baptism we've had. And we want to be people who are full of God, and we can only be people full of God if we are the people full of God. In the synodality, in the spirituality of communion, as we heard from Margaret and Jesus, we think that we've been given a track to be able to follow this passion, to become the cornerstone, to build this house and school of communion. With one of you, those we've been able to listen, we feel as if we're already on this road, supported by the word, by every word we try to live. We know there's a secret to be able to live all of this, and Margaret said it to us very clearly, reminding us what Chiara said in 82, Jesus forsaken, he is the way and the door that leads us through. He's the person of dialogue par excellence. In him is the maximum of the spirituality of communion and of synodality. Maybe we could offer some directives to help to do things more and more ahead. We've got email address so as to we can all come together. It's written here, a church network. A church network at focolare.org. Through this mail, we can continue to be in touch and to share we're waiting for your experiences. We can keep in touch with one another. Any questions that you've got, so as to help us to go ahead together. Also, the talks of Margaret and Jesus, that we can send them to you so that you can reflect on them further. And we're happy to do this. I don't think there's anything else to do, Claudia, to thank everybody who's helped to make this meeting so successful, especially those you didn't see, the many, many translators who've helped us in this moment, also the technicians, Nicholas and Claudio, the whole production group with Samiro. Besides reducing it, she's given the whole of herself for this meeting, but also each one of you from the four corners of the earth, you've made this moment possible. I think we can say it's really been a beautiful moment of ecclesial communion. And let's hope we can come again together, and maybe the technical side will work better next time. And now a final.
Gioia quest'unica città, e sul monte vuol brillare, qui Maria Regina Vergine.